turn the audio on and boom, 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 boom. What is up, Twitch? Guys, thank you for coming to our first ever guest creator stream on Civitai.com. We are going to be doing these streams every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. UTC from today going forward, where I will be bringing on someone from different corners of the AI art community, images, videos, just people that are really talented at very specific things that they do that I think would be really dope for them to showcase to you guys. And we'll learn a little bit about how they do what they do and just like see more of what's possible and how we can up our game and our skill sets by taking some notes from people who are exceptional at what they do. Because as I think most people know that come to this stream in particular, or that browse Civitai, that what we do is much more than just pressing a button. At the very least, it is pressing a lot of buttons in very specific sequences. So you have to at least give us that much. Without further ado, though, today we are going to be welcoming Dever, who is one of our Civitai regulars, and he is a community member who is very well known specifically for his prompting ability. I've been looking forward to today because, man, I've been leaning on my IP adapters really hard, so I could definitely brush up on my prompting. So I'm looking forward to what Dever has in store with us. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to stream Dever's screen through my Discord. Twitch will be able to see it. Dever's going to talk through. Today, Dever is going to be using Forge, but keep in mind, I'm sure he'll touch on this a little. Prompting kind of is what he goes over today can be applied to whatever it is that you are prompting in, whether it's automatic, whether it's comfy, whether you're using 1.5, whether you're using Excel. He's going to go over some principles that you guys can use whatever you are using in. So without further ado, Dever, whenever you are ready, you can go ahead and share your screen and I will turn it over to you and you can kind of give your little intro.
Hello. Fine. Friday evening for some, Friday morning for some. I don't know where everyone is. So as Tyler said, we're gonna be using Forge. No noodles today. We're gonna be using Zavi Karmar. Shout out to Zavi who couldn't make it today. He's gonna be watching the recording. My job for today will be to show you some of the things I've learned over the I want to say last year playing with Stable Diffusion. Things I've learned, things I've tried.
Wait, real quick.
Let's just do it. I'm gonna try and zoom through some of the things. So if you have questions or if I don't spend enough time talking about something, feel free to ask them. I won't be able to see them necessarily, but I'm sure Tyler and whoever else are watching the Discord and the Twitch will relay that.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep my eye on the chat. So if you guys have any questions on Twitch, drop them in there, and when the time is right, I'll butt into Dever and let him know. Sorry about the echo. I just put my headphones on, so we are good. Right. We are good to go.
Everyone, hear me all right? Can you see my screen? It's all good.
Boom, 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 boom. Your screen is good. I'm going to turn you up real quick. Give me a test, Dever.
Test.
How does Dever sound for you guys on Twitch? I think we're good, and I'll just adjust the volume as we go if need be. I'll keep an eye on it, but yeah, we're good to go, Dever.
Cool. So let me share a bit of a quick info about myself. Just in case anyone's wondering, I am no artist. I have no artistic bones in my body. I've never done any sort of like art classes or anything. I am a developer by day, software developer by day. And yeah, I play with Stable Diffusion, to scratch that creative itch, you know. So, right, where do we start? Let's start with some goals. So what are my goals for the stream? I'm going to teach you some tips and tricks about prompting, about image generation. Hopefully I'm going to blow some minds along the way. And basically I'm going to teach you how to fish in Stable Diffusion. You know, I'm not going to give you the fish. I'm going to teach you how to do it, right? I see a lot of people, you know, they're trying to chase this sort of like ultra realism and thing, and I think that's not where the power of Stable Diffusion lies. You know, in my personal opinion, you know, you can create some really amazing things with Stable Diffusion. And you know, if you're looking for like ultra realism, like just take a picture, you know, like. But anyway, so let's start with like my number one tip. Know your tools. This applies to, you know, Forge, to Comfy, to anything. Knowing what your UI and what your tools can do for you is like half of the journey. And in the end, you know, I see this a lot again, like my UI is better than yours, you know, my Comfy can do this, my thing. It doesn't matter. No one cares. So if I show you two images, one's in Comfy, one's in Forge, one's in whatever, automatic or focus, you're not going to be able to tell, you know, which tool was used. Like no one cares. It's all that matters is like what you're creating in the end, right? Now, with that said, you know, some tools are better than others for specific purposes. So, you know, feel free to use the right tool for your job. You know, if you're more comfortable in a tool, you know, of your choice, use that rather than, you know, going for what's popular, you know, whether it's Comfy or Forge or whatever. One thing that I learned along the way that I would really to pass on to you is basically just try everything. And when I say that, I really mean everything. Just, you know, as the saying go, you know, go outside the box. You know, if someone recommends that you should be using CFG 7 or whatever, don't do that. You know, use 1, use 2, use 15, use 20, use, you know what your models and what your tools can do, you know the extremes. And I think what you'll find is that, you know, in those areas, you know, are places where you find like the most value, you know, in the less used things, you know, click the wrong buttons, you know, test the wrong things. So what I've been doing, you know, through the last year, you know, I've been doing all of that. You know, I've been doing all the wrong things. I've been putting, you know, LoRa in the negative. I've been putting like negative values in my prompt. You know, negative weights. You know, when's the last time you try that? So yeah, that's my number one tip for you. You know your tools. Test everything. Go outside the box. I'll show you some ways of testing things along the way that make it easier to understand like how doing something actually affects, you know, your prompt, your image. There we go. Tip number 2, when you're building a prompt, basically just start small, add to it. No one writes the entire prompt, you know, at first, and they just generate like an amazing image. It's like it's an iterative process, right? You know, start small, add on to it. So let's actually make an image. So here I just, you know, put something like really random. Actually, one of the challenges that I kind of set up for myself was to try and create an image with just using like one letter. So let's try and do that. So basically, I'm just going to type some S's, right? Which brings me to another point. Like, it doesn't really matter what you put in your prompt, like you will make something. So don't be afraid to try. I like how we actually generated some snakes. I mean, that's pretty cool. This doesn't always happen, right? But here's another tip. So like, I can actually mess with the exact same prompt, but instead of a comma, I can do break, right? How many people use break? Not a lot of people, right? And you know, suddenly you're generating something completely different. How about and? You know, when's the last time you saw a prompt that uses and? How about you know, perp? For people that don't know, that stands for perpendicular. So yeah, you know, try things. You know, don't be afraid to try. And I actually have this one set up for you, which I think is more relevant to our conversation. And it's a quite a long one, and it might look really weird and strange to you. So I'm going to try and explain what's going on here. So for this to actually work, you're going to need the dynamic prompts extension. If you don't know how to do that, you basically, go to your extensions, click on available, click on load from, and then I think you can find dynamic prompts in here.
Hey, Dever.
Yep.
Real quick, someone on Twitch said, I thought break only worked with regional prompter. What does it do by default?
No, that is not true. You can use break with regional prompter as a way to basically separate the concerns, right? But that's what break's purpose is. You're basically separating the concerns. So normally, if you look in the right corner over here, your prompt is limited to like 75 tokens. So as you start typing, let's say, artful chaos or something, right? You can see I have like 3 tokens over here. So Stable Diffusion will break this up into like 3 tokens, right? And as you keep typing things, right, that number will eventually update, right? So I'm now at 29. So as you like keep going, copy this whole thing, just paste it a couple of times. What you'll see is like you go over the 75. So you're not actually limited to 75 tokens. But what's happening behind the scenes is it will actually break it apart. It'll break the prompt apart in 75 token lengths. So then each chunk will contribute to your image, right? But now let's say we're doing this, and then we do break, I don't know, a banana or something. All right, we can see we're at 76 out of 150. So when you're using break, you're actually making sure that this is one of those chunks, those 75 chunks. And everything past break, it will be, so if you think about like the impact that these two sides have to your prompt, it's kind of like a 50-50, right, at the moment. So there's chaos and banana, right? Whereas if this wasn't break and if it was just like a comma, right, we're just looking at like 5 tokens, and they're kind of like together, in the prompt, instead of like being like 2 separate entities fighting for control over the output. So hopefully that explains it. You can probably read some more online. There's a link if you go to the GitHub for Automatic 1111, and you go to their feature list, and then you search for infinite prompt, then you will find an explanation of break and all that. Hopefully that covers it. Yeah, but going back to what I was trying to show you guys. So what's going on in here? And as I mentioned, you need dynamic prompts for this. So actually, we're going to try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things. So I'm actually going to do a batch of 7. So we're going to do artful chaos. That's one of the prompts. We're going to do artful and chaos, artful and perpendicular chaos. Artful, I got this one twice, so there's salt, I guess. We're going to do the break one. We're going to alternate between the two. This is syntax for alternating. So you have artful and chaos. We have 20 steps. So what happens here is on step 1, we're going to do artful. On step 2 is going to do chaos. And then artful and chaos basically is just going to alternate between the two of them. And this last one is basically my favorite. It's called prompt editing. We're going to talk a lot about this one later. But basically what's happening here is we start with artful, and after 2 steps, we just go full chaos. And what you see here in front, this @ sign, what this allows you to do is you're actually going through this list one by one in order. So by me doing 7 of these, the first image is going to be this, and so on, right? So let's, I could have clicked this instead of talking about it. So there's artful chaos. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. Maybe this is better or something. I have my UI set to render these previews a bit faster than normal. Is it better if I leave it small or big? You guys can tell me.
I think it's fine either. I think it looks fine either way.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can just zoom in once they've finished, and we can see them individually anyway, can't we?
Yeah. But what I'm trying to demonstrate here is we're using the exact same words, right? We're using only 2 words. We have artful and chaos. But the way we're combining them, has a very big impact on what you're actually generating in the end, right? So it's hard to tell which one's which here. I wish I did it better. We could probably do it better. We could probably... Right, so this is a good segue. So one thing that I would definitely recommend you guys use, if you haven't already, is XYZ plots. XYZ plots are absolutely amazing. And the way you would use them is you have your prompt over here. So let's say our prompt is just Artful Chaos. I'm going to take all of this stuff over here, get rid of it. You go into your scripts area, click on XYZ plot, and you're looking for prompt search and replace. This is what this means. I'm going to paste it in here, change a bunch of things, and as it's generating, I'm going to explain what it does. So basically, all of these vertical pipes, they just need to be converted to commas. Everything that is comma separated will be treated as a new prompt. So basically what we're doing, let me click the button and then talk about it, is we're looking for Artful Chaos in the prompt, and then we're replacing it with the next one, and then everything that's comma separated, we're just doing the sort of replacement thing, right? And this, but the difference is going to be that all of these values are going to show up at the top. Oh, Jesus, I'm making 7 of them. Right, and I think this is where Forge comes in clutch, because I think interrupting is much faster in Forge compared to automatic 1111. So if you haven't tried Forge and you love your automatic, I would definitely recommend that. Right, so as I was saying, so we're still going to generate all of these, but what's going to happen is it's going to tell us at the top which one's which. So that's the benefit of using the XYZ plots.
Never?
Yes.
Could you perhaps increase your zoom level a bit of your browser image?
Yeah, is this better? You mean just like for text, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Right. So here's what I was talking about. So you can see at the top, what's going on. I like this one. Each one of them, have their interesting parts, right? Do we have any questions so far? Do we have any mind blowns or?
Yeah, so Engelstein
what's
actually asked us in the Discord about break. Can we get clarification about whether or not a comma is actually needed prior or post to typing the word break in?
No. Break just acts as separated for your 75 token limit, so you don't need comma or anything.
Gotcha. And then I think the one more thing, is there any way that you can just click on view in your browser and maybe just do like one punch in on the web page in general, just to make the text just a little bit bigger? There we go. Yeah, I think that's way better.
All right,
thank you.
Control plus is a shortcut for anyone that doesn't know how to zoom in. Right?
Awesome.
Control plus, Control minus. Right. So yeah, go on. You were going to say something, Tyler?
Oh yeah, no, we're good.
Okay, cool. So I think XYZ is probably the best tool you can use to like test assumptions and things. So one thing that I think Engelstein, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, was asking about earlier is, does masterpiece do anything, in my prompt, right? And one way you would, test that assumption is by putting it in your prompt, right? We'll get rid of all of these things. And basically removing it. So by doing a comma with nothing here, we're basically saying, hey, run that and then run it without masterpiece. We're basically replacing masterpiece with nothing, if that makes sense. All right, that's what search and replace does. A couple of quick notes here. You can choose to include like your angle stone, okay? You can just include like these sub images, meaning you can actually click on each one over here instead of just getting this grid over here. You can then, like if you want to save these or whatever. So that's your sub images. That's the legend at the top that we're talking about. And I tend to put in like a grid margin as well, just to separate them on the grid, because sometimes, if your image has like a white, border, and they're all together, you don't know where they start and end. So. Cool. So we were talking about masterpiece. We're doing one. We put masterpiece in there, and we're removing it. Now, as you're adding and removing stuff, from your prompt, like the image will change. So I'm not sure how good of a test this is. But yeah, I think what you'll find is that most model creators, say, don't use it. It doesn't do anything in Excel. So there you go. I'm not sure how good of a test this is, because as I said, you're kind of like adding stuff to your prompt. So like your image will change, right? Cool. Let me show you one thing that I really like doing, and it kind of like hints on what we were just doing a moment ago. And this is like your first sort of like prompt hint, right? So we're making a giant clover. And what we're saying is we want this to be inspired by, I'm not sure why this, no, that's fine. So we're trying to make a giant clover, so like made out of noodles, right? And the way we're doing that is we're using like a couple of ways. We can say inspired by, we can say stylized as, we can say shaped as, we can say resembling, we can say made out of, and I'm sure you can come up with like a million other things, right? But the important thing is you have one prompt and you're testing all of these ideas in one go, right? By the use of these like dynamic prompts. It's going through them one by one in order, which is important because if you remove this, it will just pick like a random one from the list, right? So you can get the same one twice, or if you're unlucky, like 3 times and so on, right? So that's the use of this add symbol, right? But what's important is also you need to make sure that your batch count or even batch size, we can do a batch size, matches the number of elements. Sometimes you can even go beyond that if you want to, like revisit. So I have 5 here, but if you set 7, it just means it starts from the beginning of the list and just goes over them again, right? So I have 5. Let's do a batch size of 5 over here. And if you get this error, it means you forgot to remove your stuff, right? So here I still have an XYZ plot that's looking for masterpiece. And basically this is saying, hey, there is no masterpiece, but in a really wonky way, right? If you get this error, type error, non-type object is not iterable, that's what it means, not the very friendliest error, right? All right, let's make a clover, well, 5 of them. And I think what you need to learn from these tests is like which things, work better. Like, is inspired by better than resembling? Is shaped as better than some of the other ones? This is the purpose of your test, right? You're trying to understand, like, if I'm trying to use these words, how does it affect my prompt? Is one better than the other? And the other thing you need to be aware of is that this will be different from one model to another, right? So maybe, a particular checkpoint understands, syntax better than another one. And yeah, we have noodles. Which noodles do we like more?
I like the last one, honestly.
The last one's pretty cool. Yeah, I was going to say.
Looks pretty good, right? Also, you have this little button over here that will basically make it like bigger, the actual size. I didn't talk much about that, but basically we're using A32 by 1216, which is, I think, a 2:3 aspect ratio, if I'm not mistaken. One of the preferred Excel aspect ratios. Cool. We talked about XYZ a little bit. I'm going to give you other things that is really useful for. you can use it as a LoRa tester. So, for example, I have a crappy LoRa that I was playing with. So let's try and make a giant clover. I mean, just a giant clover will do. And I think I have, yeah, there we go. So this is the only one where I actually have some epochs. And it's not a great LoRa, so don't expect much. It doesn't do much. And basically, you can use this as a way to test your epochs, right? Because all you're doing in your XYZ is you're looking for this particular string, and you're replacing it with the next one, right? And then you keep going until you run out of epochs, right? So in your search and replace, I have this right here, so you don't watch me type. This is what you would put, right? So we're looking for 501 with a 0 strength, and then we're changing it to 1, then we're moving on to the next epoch. Again, we're using 1, and so on, until we go to the last one. And normally your last epoch doesn't have, a dash, whatever. So this is really useful to test, like you made a LoRa, and you're like, okay, which one of the epochs do I want? How do I test that? That's really useful. I can run this through, I'll set a batch size of 1 here. As I said, it's not, actually, I think it's supposed to have like some sort of like Rust or something in it, as some sort of trigger. So the first image is without the LoRa, or, it includes the LoRa, but it's at 0 strength, something locked on my PC. Hopefully you guys can still hear me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, so basically what we'll do is just go through all of the epochs. As I said, don't expect much from this LoRa. It's just a test, but just so you can see that it does that, And then, at the end, you can kind of compare and be like, okay, the 9th epoch is better than, the 7th one or whatever. All right, while that's playing, here's another tip for you. So assuming you have a bunch of stuff and all of them are separated by commas, right? Or stuff. Sometimes you want to move stuff around, okay? And you would normally, highlight, you'll be like, oh, I want to move this bunch of stuff from here to the end. Okay, that takes forever, right? What you can do is you hold Alt on your keyboard and you use your left and right arrows, and you can just move them around. There you go. I saved you 5 seconds. You're welcome. Right. Right. So this is our comparison. You can kind of see, we go from not much happening to, a bunch of rust around. This is how you would, test which one you like more. And of course, you get the numbers at the top. One thing I would recommend, if you're making LoRa's and you're trying to test, which epoch is best or not, save your grids in a folder. Don't use like a single image to be like, oh, it's number 8, do like a bunch of them. And then I would recommend doing like a scoring system. I learned this from Nemik, so shout out to Nemik. He's a guy that makes LoRa's on Civit. And then just use the scoring system. Also, you don't have to render all of them. If you try, a few images and you're like, okay, the first 4 or 5, they don't do much, you can just start off from 6 here. So, you put the 6th epoch, you put this as your starting one, and you just get rid of all the other ones that you don't care about. And now you're just rendering for these ones, right? 6 without the LoRa, 6 at 1 strength. And again, you can also make this like 0.5, you feel free to play around and, understand what it's doing. And again, that's another thing you can test. So if you're, after your LoRa's, let's say you identify that like your 8th one is the best, then you can just, change this part at the end. You can say, all right, what does it look like with nothing? What about 0.5? What about at 1, right? So that's another cool thing you can do. The other thing that XYZ is good for, CFG variations. So, you found an image that you like, and, you have a CFG of 7. You can just, instead of doing a, search and replace, change your CFGs, which I can never find. There you go, CFG scale. So here you would just be saying like, hey, what about 7, 7.1? I've used this trick a lot, like where you kind of have almost the right image, but there's like a tiny artifact in it. Maybe the hand is not quite right or something. By testing like really, really, tiny CFG increments or decrements as well. You can also go down, obviously. Sometimes you just get, the right image. So if we get rid of this here, we don't need a bunch of stuff. We'll do a giant clover, 21 batch, sure. You'll, potentially see a slight variation between the images. And of course, you can test your samplers, your styles. That's the name of the game, right? Just test everything. Right, so you can see the difference here. It's quite dramatic in this case, but because we only have like a clover, But if the prompt is bigger, usually the changes are, less visible. Right, so just like I said, XYZ plot, you find it here in the dropdown. There's a lot of things you can play with, seeds, checkpoint names, samplers, anything you can think of. So let's move on to my favorite topic, I guess, and that's prompt editing. So you saw a little hint of that earlier. Basically, the way it works, the simplest form is you have a from, you have a to, and you have either a number of steps or a percentage, right? So as an example, you might have something like cat, frog, 4, or 0.1, right? So 4.
Hey, Dever.
Yeah.
Dever. So on Twitch, Ralph Finger actually asked, is the XYZ automatically fixing the seed?
Correct, yes. So even though you have like a random seed, when you're generating one of these, each one of them will have the same seed. So if you look at this one over here, for example, hopefully you can see that. It's 5762, that's still 5762, and that's still 5762, right? So all of the images on your plot, they will use the same random seed. But I think you can change that. As you can see, you have some options over here. I've never used these, so I don't know exactly what they do. Yeah, you can mess around and change the seeds, actually, depending on what you're trying. But usually, I like the same seed to be used across an XYZ plot. Hope that answers your question. Right, so back to prompt editing. Basically, I hope this is clear, but basically what's happening is we are rendering a cat for 4 steps. And then after 4 steps, we're just saying, hey, make me a frog. And you saw this earlier when I had that, I don't know, something with chaos, artful chaos, I think. That was like doing it for 2 steps. And we're actually going to use this in combination with XYZ to see what is happening. I think that's really useful. And this other one is just like a percentage. I don't like using percentages most of the time. I like to be like in control. Like, what happens if I'm using, 21 steps and I say, 0.1, what's 10% of that? Like, I don't want to know if it's 2 or 3, or does it round? Does it like, I like to be very precise with what I'm doing. So I tend to not use percentages, but, feel free to use that if you like that more. I guess if you're using a percentage, that can kind of translate a bit better when you're moving your image from, like, let's say, 20 steps to 30 or 40 steps. You're keeping the sort of like same correlation of where you're doing this change, prompt change. And what I found works really well, and I'll show you a couple of examples, really cool, soon and cool, is when you're actually transitioning from relatively similar shapes, so I guess it's probably best to show you some examples. And we'll just make up some of our own stuff. But I have some examples so you don't see me type,
Hey, Dever, I actually have a question.
Just please.
So for someone who is just making prompts like in the most basic sense where they're just typing what they want, comma, typing what they want, and just doing like that normal token separation,
Yep.
are there any resources you could recommend to where people could learn how to actually get deeper into the syntax? Like, what do the brackets mean? When to use backslashes? When to use semicolons? Because I actually think a lot of people, unless they get really deep into it, aren't actually aware of what the switch ups in the syntax can actually do to help them improve beyond just trying to like brute force phrases and sentences and separating things with commas, just like normal.
Yeah. And I think this is where testing, random things, side by side, adding one little thing. This is where like your XYZ plots are so important, It's really hard to give you a formula or a way to do it, or there is no one way of doing it. That's the beauty of it, right?
If you sorry to interrupt, if you actually click on the dynamic prompts and you open that up, there's
Yeah.
actually a syntax cheat sheet in there where it says need help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and that's got all sorts of things to do with like wildcards.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
Mind blown. So real quick, can you in semi slow motion, can you show people where they can find that cheat sheet in the UI one more time?
So you have like your dynamic
prompts, click there.
drawer or something. And you click to expand it, and then if you scroll, you will have this need help one.
Yep, that's it.
Also, here's another thing you can try. I haven't had much success, but you can use this like prompt magic thing where basically you tick this box, you set what sort of length you want your prompt to be and how creative you want it to be, and it will use a model like a GPT-2 model sort of to like augment your prompt. So you would put something like I don't know, cats in the rain, right? You're not very creative, and you're like, hey, I want to start with a cat in the rain. You enable your magic prompt over here. You say, maximum of like, let's say 75, tokens. We'll leave creativity to like 0.7. I think that's the default. The first time you use it, we'll actually download this model. So, look in your console and you'll see it, downloading if you're wondering why it's taking so long. Let's generate like 2 images or something, one by one. And you will see that it'll basically try and augment the prompt with a bunch of stuff. Sometimes it's smarter, sometimes it's not. But it will usually make like your images prettier, so if you feel like you don't have the, creativity to prompt for certain things, then it's not making 2 because I have an XYZ plot, so it's going to make 6. So there you go. So don't forget to turn off your XYZ plots. I do that all the time. All right, but this is also a good example of, the difference in CFG scales, right? So this is our grid. So you can see the 2 images we've generated over here. And you can see, as I was saying, like the tiny difference between like 7 and 7.1. Like here, we don't have this. I can't see any other differences, but there's probably more. You can see there's an umbrella here, which wasn't over here, but was over here. You kind of get the idea, there's slight variation, random tail over here like that. Right. So yeah, we're talking about dynamic prompts. I can't remember where we started the conversation. But yeah, personally, I like testing like random things, with my prompts. So I would put things in here where I want to see like how my image is being, modified, like on the roof or whatever. Or I can't remember who was saying this. It was probably Simply Focus earlier. Like he was trying to do like a man walking up the mountain or something, right? So say we have like a man, and then we can try and see which which thing works better, because Stable Diffusion doesn't always understand walking up the mountain or something, right? So you can try a couple of things. So let's try walking up. We could try I don't know, going up, right? Going up the mountain. Got any more ideas? Fresh out of going up the mountain ideas. Climbing. There we go. Thank you very much. Climbing the mountain.
Scaling.
Lovely. All right, but you get a picture, right? And remember to change your batch size to account for like what you're trying to do. We're still vertical. We're still at CSG7. I think I disabled that. We still have the magic prompt. So let's interrupt that. Get rid of it. Beautiful.
Yeah, get climbing, Phil.
So this is, in my opinion, the best way to get better at, prompting. Like, try different things, see, and you can get lucky with a particular seed where like one of them behaves better than the other. So don't take your results, for granted. Try it at least a couple of times, right? But let's try and get back to prompt editing. That's where we started. So we're doing like a cat frog thing, and I had some examples. So here's one that I was playing with earlier. So just a quick recap. So this is what we're starting with. We have a floating backlit pin cushion with giant pins isolated on a dark background. And then we're swapping to a woman having a bad hair day, unusual abstract portrait. We're starting at 1, and we're actually going to change. We're going to do an XYZ so you can see what's happening. You're going to have to watch me type. I apologize. Should have copied the comments though. Do that. So we're probably going to switch up the number of steps as well. So let's say 5 and 6. This is where the magic happens. So we have 30 as our grid margin. I think going up to 6 is fine. We do 30 steps. We do 1. These are very important because otherwise you're going to make a million of them. And let's see what happens. We get none because I probably didn't copy this correctly. Or I have a space or something. What's going on? So I put CFG scale. Okay, my bad. There we go. We learn how to fail together. Right, prompt search and replace. So this is our switcheroo at 1. This is at 2. So what you will see happens is we're getting more and more of the original prompt, right? Because we're switching like later. One thing to point out is I haven't put in any sort of like realistic photographic or anything like that. So we're pure whatever Stable Diffusion gives us, right? But you can see how this allows you to be like super creative with no input. One thing that I would say is at some point you will reach what I call the point of no return, where the composition of the image, can no longer be affected, right? Because we're doing 30 steps. And if I let one of these run, just one, switch this back to nothing, if I can click on it. Let's say, I don't know, number 3 or something. Doesn't really matter which one. We have a different seed as well, by the way. So first of all, see, we don't get the same result, but notice how, let's run this image again. notice how at some point the composition doesn't change anymore. Like right about here, right? Like 50%-ish of the image, like nothing happens. Like Stable Diffusion actually just focuses on the details, right? But the composition itself has been done and dusted. Like it will not change things anymore, right? But one thing that I want to show you is, and the thing that blew my mind and got me into this sort of like prompt editing thing in the first place, is we all know that if you were to add anything to this prompt, like let's say I add something like red hair over here, right? Even though I'm keeping the same seed, by adding stuff into the prompt, like this image will completely change, will dramatically change, right? Maybe not dramatically, you know, because we're still starting from that, right? But like our image completely changed, right? But there's a way to not do that, right? Because with the power of magic, right, we're gonna say, hey, you know, leave this thing alone, right? So this here, I'll do it and then I'll explain it. Let's say we'll do this like, I don't know, 8 steps. We can mess with it. I don't know what the right thing to do is. So did you see what happened there? So like for the first 8 steps, we kept the exact same image.
Sorcery.
That is absolutely bonkers.
Which brackets did you use for that? Because it's hard to
Right.
read.
So let me take this outside. Right. So this is our original prompt, right? And what I've done is in the middle, I'm saying, hey, start with nothing, right? Can you see that here? I don't know. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. Maybe that helps. Oops. There we go. Maybe that's better. So what I'm doing
Keep
here
it
is I'm
like
saying,
this,
hey,
please.
start with nothing.
Yeah.
And then after 8 steps, right? This is our from, this is our to. Add this in the prompt, right? Red hair, comma, red hair, right? After 8 steps. And what this allows us to do is we're letting Stable Diffusion, you know, do its job for like 8 steps. And then we're just like interfering and we're saying, hey, no, actually, you know, make the hair red. And this right here is the best thing you can do when you found an image that you really like and you want to change something about it. I found this when I was playing around with a prompt for the Cyberpunk contest, if people remember that on Civitai. Like I made a really cool image, and I really liked the composition, and I really wanted to change something, like just add like some matrix glyphs to it, you know. And I was like, how do I do that? Because I can't, you know, like if I add anything to the prompt, it will mess it up. It will completely change it, right? But it only happens if you're doing it from the beginning, right? But we're not doing that from the beginning. We're just doing it here, right? So instead of red hair, right? Let's say we want like some falling matrix glyphs. Why not? Who doesn't want some matrix glyphs? Do we get any matrix glyphs? We get something. I'm not sure if they're falling, if they're matrix glyphs. It's trying to do something. How about some green matrix glyphs? How about raining? And this is where, you know, all of the tips that I recommended earlier come into play, because instead of trying like one thing, you can do, you know, our crafty little try more stuff. You know, we had falling here, we can go raining, I don't know. Out of ideas. Usually when you're, you know, put on the spot, you know, it's harder to think about like anti-gravity things. I don't know, you know.
Quick question, Deborah. So if you were to tell Stable Diffusion to put something in the right of the image, would it actually do it?
Would it put it in the right of the image?
Right.
No,
Can you tell Stable
not
Diffusion
necessarily.
where something in the image is without using the selection thing?
You mean like like over here?
Yeah, like without using regional prompting. Is that something you can do?
I don't think so, and I wouldn't even try. There's certain things that you just won't be able to do. You need to know like which battles can you win, and which battles are pointless. I would say that's a pointless one. Like if you want something here, you're better off like using control net or
okay.
Right? So I mean, let's do that. Like, why not do some sort of control netty thing? What are we doing here? So we have our XYZ. Actually, I've set that to nothing, so it doesn't do anything. So that's fine. Let's get rid of it completely. So we're looking at 3. I don't know which one looks better. They're not matrix glyphs. You could potentially try and like increase the weight, that sort of thing. Play with it. That's not what I'm here for, right? So there we go. That's a bit better. I'm only here to teach you like the technique. I'm not trying to show you like the perfect image or anything like that, right? You can play with this stuff, you can go higher, lower, play with all the numbers, and eventually you're going to get something that you like, right? All I'm doing is I'm trying to show you, the tools you have at your disposal, right? That looks a bit better. You can probably get it even better. You can see our image changed drastically. We're not just changing like the hair, right? We're kind of like adding stuff, to the composition. You could probably, again, mess around with this number, put it later. There's all sorts of things you could do. You could add double exposure. That's one of my favorite things. Let's see. So where will we put this? Probably outside here. Say double exposure. Don't know what happened there.
And something I just want to point out while Dever is kind of going through all this is the most important part about this whole thing that I really hope you guys take away is that getting to your image, or even in my case with the videos, getting to whatever it is you're trying to get to doesn't happen immediately. And it usually takes way more time than anyone who sees your final product actually realizes it took you to get there. And that all these different methods and all the experimenting, like this is what it's all about. And exactly, Irotaku, it is a process. And the better that we get at understanding and being able to kind of like iterate and flow through our process, then we can get to a better final result more quickly eventually. But it doesn't happen without first getting good and going through the paces of the process.
Correct.
But also, if you prompt and you don't get what you want in the image, don't be discouraged. Play around.
Yeah. Oh yeah, clearly. Yeah.
Don't accept defeat.
Let me show you another example. I was playing with this yesterday. So here we're going from an upside down light bulb, which I thought was really cool, to an elegant woman that's bending light. Now, one interesting thing is that these are kind of connected. You got a light bulb that will potentially have some sort of light, and then we're kind of like we're still on the same page, even though we're changing things completely, right? And it's a long prompt. I think all of this stuff doesn't really need to be on the outside because we don't want the light bulb to be anatomically correct. So just grab this, check it in here. So you can see we're still trying to change like on the first step. We're going to put our thing back here. So we're going from 1 to 6. We're going to try all of these. We're going to try 1 for each one of those. And we're going to let the magic happen. So initially, there's no light bulb, right? Because after 1 step, we're just going, hey, it's a woman. It's not a light bulb, I promise, right? What have I done wrong? 1. Oh, it says nothing. Great. There we go. Prompt, search, and replace. There we go. We're failing together. That's a lock seed. That's where we're getting the same result. You saw a light bulb there for like 2 frames. And what you'll find is that there's going to be a sweet spot where the two things we're going to start and merge together creatively, right? Sometimes, like after you've experimented with things, a lot, you're going to know where that sweet spot is without, trying to, go through this XYZ plot. So like you'll know that like 4 or 5, if you're using like 30 steps, you'll know that like 4 or 5 is like a really good, point to do that.
Yeah.
That cool? Yesterday, I actually got a better image. I'm not going to try and search for it. I'll just show you some more examples. So let's make, here's another one. As you can see, we're focusing on women. So we have the same, elegant woman, bending light, long flowing dress, slow shutter speed, blah, blah, blah. Coherent, symmetrical artwork, take a guess, add some keywords. It all works, right? Now, if you were to just render that, let's get rid of this because it's gonna explode otherwise. We're locking the seed, right? You get something like this, and most people do that, and they're very happy with the result. They're like, wow, ultra realism. Put your A detailer on the face, and you're done, right? Now, what I tend to do is I come up with some patterns. So I might do a sine wave, for example. That is not a sine wave, sir. I guess it is, but it's not what I was hoping for. I was hoping for something in the middle. So, okay, we're experimenting, playing together. So how about a giant sine wave pattern, horizontally centered?
On a computer screen.
I mean, sure, that's not what I'm going for. I'm kind of I just want a big thing, But, for DAS on a computer screen, why not? So what do we get there? Cool. I mean, we are on a computer screen, so it's just giving us a pattern, right? Cool. I like that. So how about we now go from this pattern into our woman? And we're going to go back to our XYZ. We're going to go from 1 to 6. I think we can probably go higher. Whoops, just pasted that. So let's say 7 and 8 as well. Why not? We're still using the same seed, batch of 1, 30 steps. We could even go higher. See like that. See what we get. Swine. Nice. Yeah, I think one thing we didn't mention, Tyler, was people playing with these sort of things and sharing their things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so guys, if you take any of the techniques that Dever is showing today and you create something cool with it, go ahead and post it on Civit and tag it with hashtag DeverStream. So DEVERSTREAM when you post it on Civitai. That way everyone's images that were created after watching the stream today with something that Dever inspired you with, we can see in one collection on Civit just by using that hashtag. So again, if you upload an image with something you learned from Dever, use the tag Dever, DEVER, stream, STREAM, when you upload the image.
So look at that. Can you imagine trying to prompt, number 5 over here? Isn't that cool?
Yeah, agree with you, man.
That is sick.
And okay, let's say you found 5 that's really good, or maybe 4 or something, right? Who says that you have to make a giant sine wave pattern, on a computer screen? Just test other things, right? you can see how all of the tips and tricks that I mentioned earlier, they kind of like tying together. So like, how about a
compounding them?
Giant carrot, a banana, a cute rabbit. We'll get rid of this thing. Maybe we'll keep horizontally centered. I don't know. Usually it's nice to have something. All right, let's move that over here. We'll get rid of the computer screen. So we have a carrot, a banana, a cute rabbit. What else? An open burning book. Rising smoke. I mean, come up with your own. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's make 5 of these. I'm going to get rid of my XYZ because I have 5 there already. And let's see what we get. So I was looking at the chat, and there was a question. There's a kind of problem with such method. Can't do this with turbo models. It depends on the model and how many steps you are allowed. But yeah, you can see how faster doesn't help. Like always, faster is not good. I like slow. I want to see what's going on. Like I want to see the steps. I want to see the noise being converted, from one thing to another, right? So yeah, the problem with turbo models or these sort of like faster ways of generating an image is you don't have the same amount of control. You don't have the same number of steps. So if you only have like 8 steps, yeah, sure, you can do a switch of like 1, maybe a 2, but yeah, you don't have the same control. So I can't remember what we're generating, but I really like this rabbit one. That's cool. That's crazy. I like the burning book as well.
The rabbit, the rabbit dress is definitely my favorite.
Yeah, that's really cool. Let's isolate that one. There you go. And it's cool. And what I found is that people can relate to like particular shapes, right? So if we change these, let's say, to things like heart or brain or I don't know, a dagger, Usually what I like doing is because I like the shape to be quite bigger, like I might add things like large, floating, that sort of thing, centered, we already have like horizontally centered, but why not vertically centered, right? Sorry, what was that?
I said spaceship.
Spaceship. Gotcha. Right, let's do spaceship. I mean, some people can relate to that. But I found like really, really simple shapes, like let's say teapots or things that people can recognize quite easily, like work really well. Sometimes you can get lucky with like trying to do letters, so we could try like a W shape, for example. But you're kind of like just betting on Stable Diffusion, not messing up your letters and stuff, which usually doesn't happen. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do like 3 more. Can I have some suggestions? Not that one. You're typing. Any suggestions from the chat?
Umbrella.
How about a cow? How about an umbrella?
Sculpture.
Sculpture. You're just gonna get. Yeah, I mean, if you want a particular type of sculpture of something, then that would probably work better.
Sculpture of AI.
Yeah, sculpture. There we go.
Sadia in Twitch says eagle.
Eagle. Yeah. Okay. I will replace my brain with an eagle. There we go. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's beautiful. The reason 9 is beautiful is because you get a nice 3x3 grid here. So usually when I play around with things,
don't you need your brain?
Not today. You can see this is brainless. You put stuff in, and look at that. Stable Diffusion just makes awesome things for you. You don't need a brain.
Who needs a brain if they can prompt?
Someone's gonna clip that and use it against us forever now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I'm trying to show you guys is that the results you can get are things that are sometimes impossible to prompt for. Like, there's a cow. That's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, you can
That's
get some
pretty
really,
cool,
really
man.
crazy things. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're like, okay, this is like really cool, but like, where's my control? Like, I don't like this randomness. You know, this was one of the things that I really struggled to adapt to. You know, when I started learning about this, I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier or not. But you know, like this lack of control. Like I always thought about it. Like, you know, I have an idea in my head, and I'm trying to make, you know, this thing on the left interact with this thing on the right. You know, it's really hard to lose control and you know, like let that control over. You know, pass it over to, you know, Stable Diffusion. But if you do that, you know, you can get some really cool things. But as we're talking about control, let's grab one of these. Let's say you really like this, right? And I mean, you could just like make an eagle, right? And let me try and save this somewhere really quick. Let me drag this over here, right? We could potentially keep the same things. Why not? And what we're going to do is we're going to use our control net. We're going to drag that image in. We could just use depth. Like, why not? That's really good. That looks pretty cool, right? We have a weight of 1. I kind of don't like that necessarily. But we could use the, you know, we can give it like less control from here, or we could do the weight. We could do both. Let's try this. So basically what we're saying is like 40% of the way, like use this and then go crazy, right? With a weight of 1. So now, even though we're starting from like some particular ideas, we're gonna use that original shape, you know, for like 40% of the way, which is probably quite a lot. Like, so you can see kind of like on the actual Eagle one, we're kind of getting almost the same generation, but for the other ones, you know, we're going a bit crazier. But this sort of thing, like, it's impossible to prompt. You can't prompt this pose, you know. Like all of these wavy things, and they're just like impromptable. Just prompt it better, yes. Yeah, it's just a skill issue. Thank you, typing.
Of course.
Hey, wait, real quick. I'm gonna open up the the Discord chat real quick on the screen just so people can see this image that Incilia posted, where he said, "If you cross David Bowie's Goblin King with a pineapple, you may get a Final Fantasy character." I'm sorry. I thought that was super funny. Carry on.
Yeah, so you can see our results over here. You can see how, you know, we have more control now over what's generated, but we're still, you know, going crazy. But we are going crazy in a more controlled fashion, right? I kind of really like the last ones over here. And I mean, I like all of them. I like crazy stuff. Yeah, so any questions? Give me your questions. I mean, we can make more of these. Like the yellow and teal.
Could you run through what the perp thing does again? Because I kind of
That
get.
one's quite hard to explain, but I think I can provide a link. I think initially this was an extension. Did I save the link to this somewhere? Maybe. No. Maybe? I don't know. It's a different way of distributing the attention, basically, right? I will find it and I will link it to you.
Tyler, we had a question. Do these techniques work well with Animate Diff? Maybe
Yeah,
this is something we could try next week?
Yeah, possibly. I'd be interested to see how this works when we don't inject an IP adapter and we go back to just straight prompting and see what type of madness we could get with it. One thing's for sure, inserting like the symbols and changing up the syntax of your prompt, no matter what, is going to change your output. Whether or not this has the same type of effect on the syntax and the prompt in like your batch prompt scheduler in Comfy as it does in this web UI, that I'm unsure about.
Let's see if we can find some more examples and things. I have no idea what's going on in this Chrome.
Dever, since we are kind of coming up to the hour and a half mark, what are some things that you could, like, if anyone who is like a beginner or who really is struggling with prompting, would want to take something really important away from this, or if you could give like a piece of just like advice that you think will hold true no matter what level people are at, what do you think that, what would that be?
I would say don't trust what other people are saying and just test your assumptions. This is probably the best advice I can give you. There's no way for me to teach you how to prompt. As you can see, like you can put anything anywhere. You know, some things will do better, some things won't. And you just have to experiment and try and understand like what happens. And another thing that I found, sorry, I'm jumping from one thing to another. Another thing that I found really useful, take on challenges. Like people will say, like in Discord, on forums, wherever, you know, YouTube comments, oh, it's impossible to do this. Like I remember one in particular, someone was saying in the Discord chat, I can't do a chair floating in the middle of the room, right? So I took that as a challenge. Like, how would you even try that, right? How would you even make that happen? And basically, just by doing things where, you know, I have my chair doing something, and I leave some space here in the middle of the room, you know, just testing things. You know, what can Stable Diffusion understand? That's how you get better. You know, just test your assumptions. Test your assumptions. Yeah. So floating doesn't work, right? But you can try that. I think what I got it to work in like 50% of the cases was like jumping. So like Stable Diffusion understood what, you know, a person probably jumping means. I think I was trying things like hovering. Can't remember. It was like
levitating.
Levitating, yeah, that's another thing. There's like you know, 4, 5, 6 things you can try. And yeah, eventually you will find one that works, or, you know, you can try, you know, increasing, you know, the weight of things and see what happens, right? Let's see, we don't want to do that batch. We want to do like 4. We probably don't want the control net, and we're good. All right, so here's floating. That's not very floating. There's some sort of like liquid there or reflection. That's jumping, I guess.
Hey, Dever, just to confirm, you're using the curly brackets here, right?
Correct. Yeah. I just
there you go, Engelstein.
Yeah, so I think in the end, I managed to get it working with like jumping. So we could try like 4 jumping ones or something. I don't remember if Was this one or not? But you can see it knows that jumping like refers to a human. So eventually it will make, the chair so like in the air, something like that. So yeah, my best advice to you is, experiment. Don't make assumptions. If you find prompts that you like, save them somewhere.
X-Files.
X-Files, yeah. And just test things. You have an idea. See what Stable Diffusion makes of it, and constantly add to your things. To your prompts. See what happens. Go back. It's a lot of work. Let me show you another example. So we have a floating, overlapping, hollow polygon spin. And we have a woman portrait inspired by Trident's mirrored imagery. I love this one, by the way. We found this when we had clubs. Have a waterbender and a fast shutter speed and a LoRa as well. And we're switching at 5. We got 30 steps. We're making 4, I guess. We don't really need 4. Maybe we should do 1. Should go back to our XYZ. Probably don't need 8 there. Just do that. And I messed it up because there's no space here. So now we're probably loading that LoRa. Here's another tip for you in Forge. I'm guessing in automatic as well. You can do this thing. You can, if you like, use multiple LoRas, and you're rendering multiple images, you can get this to cache the number of LoRas you're using, so that it doesn't try and load them every time for each image. And that should technically speed things up a little bit, not too much. What's going on? Why are you slow? What have I done? Are we still good? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yes,
hear
we
you.
can.
Nice.
Boom.
The inevitable generation slowdown just comes out of nowhere.
Wow, what have we done?
The broken. Okay, I think we're back. Who knows? A little bit of a hiccup.
Zombie, that is all dependent on your web UI. But for you, Deborah, does it matter where the lures are? Like in what folders? Can you still just call for them?
I have some in folders, yeah, in separate folders. I'm not sure why this is stuck. Yeah. Oh, hello, Zavi.
Whoa, the time's going backwards.
Yeah. Oh, it always does that a bit. Well, the idiosyncrasies of Forge.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, there we go. So you can kind of see the progression where we're getting like more of the whatever this is, floating, overlapping, hollow polygon spin, right? Mouthful.
I actually really like number 5 there. Like that is a
Pretty cool, isn't it?
thinking one.
Yep, I like it.
I like number 6 because she looks like a Rubik's Cube waiting to be solved.
Yeah, worked for you, waifu.
So, Dever, what give us a last a last tidbit or something cool that we can take away from this for these last 10 minutes here.
Something cool. Well, I hope what you've seen so far has been pretty cool.
Oh no,
At least
it's super cool. It's everything has been super cool. I learned a lot today for sure. This is a lot about syntax that I didn't know when it comes to prompting. But just throw one more thing at us for these last 10 minutes.
What have we got? Oh yeah, so things I haven't touched on, only just a little bit, was control net. That if you find that you're missing your control, definitely add control net into the mix. Like just experiment, mix things. Regional prompter is another thing that you can experiment with. I think that can be really useful. I think the most the coolest thing I've made with regional prompter, I'm gonna struggle to find this, but maybe I can show you this. Some people might have seen this already, but I basically have a woman reflection. Actually, I'm going to show you another one really quick, which pretty much uses the same sort of like pattern. You can see I have a floating blooming rose isolated on a black and crimson gradient background, and then we're swapping to a ballerina. And look at that. That's crazy. I actually saw an Instagram video that I've linked some people in Discord somewhere, where they actually create something like this with like probably a lot of people, photographers in a studio. Yeah, I'm not gonna browse anywhere. Yeah, I know it's not safe. Yeah, they had like a lot of people like in the studio, and they were basically creating something like this. The pose was quite different, but I just want to point out to the fact that the amount of resources spent to generate something like this in real life, compared to doing with Stable Diffusion, is a big difference there. So I think if you're trying to learn how to do these crazy sort of things, you'll definitely have some sort of benefit in the future where you're going to make something for someone much faster, without the need to hire like 20 people and all that. So if you're wondering, why would I ever care about this? This is the best example I can give you, and I'll try and find that link. If anyone's got any questions for me before we close, let me see if I can find that link.
Evan, anyone got any questions for these last couple minutes here that you would like Dever to answer? Now is your time.
I was going to say, are there any particular extensions that you sort of like, your go-tos?
In terms of extensions, I don't think I use that many. I have a detailer, I have canvas zoom, I have dynamic prompts. I've tried the layer diffuse one, regional prompter, of course the Civitai extension. This one I just tried like yesterday. You can actually save like each step of your generation. So like if you're not sure, we were just like looking at like those steps and like when to switch from something into something else. This extension can actually save you like each image at each step. It's going to be the previews that you see like over here instead of the actual generated image.
Okay.
But you can see kind of like what sort of like noise pattern you have like at each step.
Yeah.
And it might help you, Oh, actually, I just remembered. Let me show you guys something really cool. If I can find the link. One thing I didn't mention is that you can actually nest these bad boys. So, if you have like your from and your to and your step, so let's say 2 or whatever, right? But there's nothing stopping you from putting another one inside here. So like you have another from into with a step. So maybe there's a 2 here and there's a 4 here. So it can get really mental, right? But you kind of like have to treat them individually. they will basically be parsed individually. So let me see if I can show you this one. Where is it? Where is it? Oh yeah, there we go. So here's a post. You guys familiar with it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. Well, this post, that's the resulting image, but you'll see the image being generated here. So you can see a bird, a plane, and there's Superman as well. So this actually uses this concept of like nesting these prompt editing techniques. So if you look at the actual prompt over here, I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit. Yeah, you can see, it nests these things. So it goes from a bird to an airplane for like the first 3 steps. And then it switches over to Superman, after the 6th step. So yeah, I thought the result was very cool.
Superman got some super hands. Holy.
Yeah. I mean, that was like, you can imagine this is like actually quite difficult to get right, because it's really hard to get that transition, to happen as, in those steps. Yeah, so this was just like one of, I don't know, like 50 images that I tried, and the only one that I thought was like really good to get that point across. And of course, with any good images, you get like 2 reactions or something on Civitai. So they're not worth it. Don't do this at home, kids.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, Dever, do you have any last words that you would like to say here?
I haven't checked out any of the images. If anyone posted images for the hashtag that we mentioned earlier, I haven't looked at any of them yet. Have you been looking at those, Tyler?
I actually haven't seen any. I just checked.
Okay.
So
well, you guys
probably have to go back and check.
Lazy people. Okay. Yeah. Well, I hope you learned something, like maybe a little tip, trick, how to move your text around or something, how to test things. Yeah, hope you got something useful out of this.
Yeah, cool stuff, man.
Boom. Yeah. Dever, thank you so much for that masterclass breakdown. I know I learned a lot. I'm going to get this uploaded to YouTube ASAP. So if any of you guys want to watch it back, because I know I would definitely have to watch that back to go and pick pieces out of it. That's going to be on the Civitai YouTube channel by end of day today. And yeah, I think that was a really great first guest creator stream. Chat, what do you think?
One thing I haven't mentioned is if you look into prompt editing, there are lots of things. I only touched like on the basic syntax, like your from to a little bit. But you can use this to like remove stuff as well. So you're going from something to nothing, or like you've seen one example before, you can go from nothing to something, which are really powerful. You can have something like affecting your image, and then after a number of steps, you can just pull it out and either replace it with something or just like completely remove it. So yeah.
Awesome, Dever. Thank you so much, guys. If you want, Dever, tell people where they can find you on Civitai and on social.
Yeah, you can find me on Civit. I'm Dever on Civit. You can find me on Instagram. I'm art.dever on Instagram. You can find me on DeviantArt. Dever makes art over there. I shall attempt to give you some links. So here is the Civit one.
Let me grab I'll grab the links and throw them in Twitch for everyone.
Yeah, if you make anything, using some of these tips, definitely tag me in. If you post things to Civit, throw a tag. I'm always curious to see, what other people make with these sort of things.
Guys, go give Dever a follow on his socials. If you haven't, check out his other stuff. Make sure you definitely follow him on Civitai to keep up with what he's doing on there. And you can always find Dever hanging out in the Civitai Discord. So if you have any questions or you just want to tug at his shirt a little and pick his brain, Dever is always around in our community Discord. If you're not a part of that, you definitely want to be. We have a whole gang of people sitting in the Discord along with you folks on Twitch. Only difference is the people in Discord get to interact with us in voice. So if you want to be a part of that in any streams going forward, make sure you get in here right when the stream starts, because the Discord caps out at 20 or 25, I believe, while we're streaming. So if you ever want to join us in Discord and be a part of the voice chat, you can go ahead and do that. Dever, thanks so much, man. That was awesome. Thank you. And yeah, guys, my name is Tyler. This has been our very first guest creator stream in its new time slot. We're going to be doing this every Friday at 10 p.m. UTC, 3 p.m. Pacific. Next week, I got a special one for you guys. We are having my good friend Enigmatic E, who you folks might know from his YouTube content, joining us next week, Friday. So that is definitely going to be a stream that you guys do not want to miss. Enigmatic has been doing some really phenomenal stuff, combining 3D and AI, and he said he was going to put something special together for us. So I will see you guys next Friday. Twitch, we're signing off. Have a great weekend. Max will be back on Monday with the Civitai office hours. So if you want to know what's going on with the site, or you just want to come in and let him know what a great job we're all doing, he will be on then at 6 p.m. UTC. Civitai.com. I'm Tyler. We're out. Peace. Thank you, guys.